This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. Today's guest is Mr. Doug Scheer, who is an entertainer at school functions, specifically for school assemblies, and more specifically, I guess, for elementary, junior high, and high school types of schools, and has been doing this since, 1987, since he got out of college, and he's done over 8,000 shows. The guy is amazing, and he's got a lot to share, and he's been doing this not only for a number of years, but also has a number of programs that he has developed that he takes back to these schools year after year. And he has also then gone out and been able to develop not only the shows that he does for schools, but also has them available so there are people who are going out and actually replicating exactly what he's doing. He's given them the blueprint, and they're going out and doing his show elsewhere in their own areas and school districts. So anyhow, if you're interested in school assemblies and these kinds of larger shows for children, which are just, well, I started to say larger birthday parties, but actually we get to talking about that in this week's episode then too. But I would say this is going to be something that would be of high interest to you if you have an interest in wanting to entertain children. Even if you're doing birthday parties, I think that you'll get a lot out of what Doug has to say and how the children should be treated and respected. So please welcome my guest here this week, Mr. Doug Scheer, here on The Magic Word. I really haven't had a lot of magicians on in the past on the podcast over the past nearly 1,000 episodes who have been children's show magicians, because that hasn't been something that I've specialized in, but that is certainly a large number of magicians that do magic shows for children or birthday parties. But there is a small number of people who are very successful at doing school show assemblies, which is a completely different animal kind of a thing. And I remember here in the Texas area, of course, J.B. Bobo was big in doing these shows. And also the magicians who do these school assemblies influence the children in so many ways. And today, of course, they have programs that are specifically designed for different programs, of whether it used to be, I don't know if they still do, don't say no to drugs, but also anti-bullying and other kinds of science and math and different projects and things like that for school assemblies, which they also will then do on a smaller basis than in library shows during the summertime. But for the other 9 months of the year, or however many months that the children are in school, there are school assembly shows that are going on. And as you get closer to the end of the year, as you would imagine, of course, the schools that have certain budgets have been kind of postponing and waiting, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we better use it or lose it. So they have to spend it as they get close to the end of the year. Well, here we are towards the end of the year, and I'm lucky enough to actually pull one of the major performers aside for a little bit to chat about this before he takes off to do a show or two here today even as well. He's from the Michigan area, and so he is a brother from another mother in so many ways, as you'll see and hear soon here. And I from Illinois, and so he's just next door over there practically in Michigan. And so I see him at the Abbott's get together frequently, and that's about the only other time, because the rest of the year, again, he's pretty darn busy. Okay, enough from me. I just think that this is somebody I know that you will learn a lot from, and just in our conversation, it's great to welcome my guest here today, Mr. Doug Scheer. Hey there, Doug. How are you?
I feel honored to be on the legendary Scott Wells podcast, so thank you so much for having me. How many episodes has it been? Like 5,000 or something?
It certainly sometimes feel that way. You know, when I wake up in the morning, it's like, oh, I got another one I got to get out, you know, and the deadline's looming. Yeah, we're coming up well, this will be like close to 970 or something, 960 something.
Amazing.
So, yeah, quite a few. And so, but you have done like 8,000 school shows or so all around. I mean, the Midwest, not just Michigan, but in Illinois and Ohio and every place else. So you travel about in doing these school shows, and then go back year after year, because you've been doing this, I guess, since like 1987.
I got out of college in '87. Been doing it before that, but that's when it really was like do or die in terms of make some money or starve, live in a cardboard box, or live in a nice home with a family.
Did you go to University of Michigan, or where'd you go?
Michigan State. Have fun. Yeah, let's get the elephant out of the room though first.
Yes.
The elephant is that I'm a terrible magician. It's like In
But you're a
fact,
snappy dresser, I might add.
yeah, I love the
I
outfit.
like
It's
this
just
this look.
fantastic.
You
Yeah.
know, you have a perfect head also. Good place for hair. And
Thank you.
someday that this is going that way.
Yeah. Well, you got time. I lost mine early. It's all good. It's all good. No, but that definitely. In fact, when I lectured at Cadabra the first time, I had AJ, God bless his soul, introduce me, and the introduction basically was Doug Scheer's a terrible magician, and here he is to prove it. Um,
What an introduction.
yeah, and I say that because there's so many guys out there that are
Yeah, yeah.
incredible sleight of hand artists, guys that you know who they are. You can list them a mile long of these guys. I do a terrible double lift. I can do a great bill switch and crazy man's handcuffs, but when it comes to skill, that's all I have. Everything else is bigger stage type stuff, and don't have to worry about the fingers working too much. Um, so yeah, my contribution to magic though is not necessarily creating magic tricks or anything. I've made a career out of developing educational programs. So I have 12 of them right now, and I do travel throughout Michigan. I prefer to stay in Michigan because it's where my family is, but we're on the East Coast quite a bit. The kids are grown, and so the wife and I take off and we do the Broadway shows, and we stay in old castles, and we kind of rekindle our relationship now that it's phase two of our life. So we're on the road quite a bit. Got 2 more weeks coming up in May. There we're going to be on the East Coast, and we go out there because honestly, the money is fantastic on the East Coast. The cost of living is so high.
Are you doing school shows while you're out there then too?
Yeah, I'm nothing but school shows. When we're on tour, it's nothing but school shows. 95% of my business is school shows. The other 5% is a theater that I work in every August. I do a historical magic type of magic show in this old historic theater built in the late 1800s. Used to be an old vaudeville house, believe it or not. And so that's my August, and then the rest
Was
of the
that
time
out in the East Coast also, the theater?
no,
Or is
that's
that
right.
Michigan?
That's right here in good old Flint, Michigan, where we
Okay.
had the water crisis. So,
Yes,
and
yeah, I forgot about that.
yeah, exactly. And honest to goodness, years before the water crisis came out, I was looking at my audiences going, something's in the water out here because these people aren't entirely engaged. Now, it could be because it was 95 degrees outside and all they wanted to do was sit down in the air conditioner and stare at me. But it's either way, just a little joke. Yeah, so.
Well, and working with the school management, and particularly those who have the purse strings, does your wife act as your manager, or has she got a separate job?
Yeah, she's got her own thing going on. My wife decided when she was 59 years old, she thought it would be fun to be in a bikini on stage and have men judge her. So she.
Yeah, right.
No, it's true.
Really?
It's true.
That's just the
Yeah.
opposite of my wife is saying,
Oh
I
my
don't think
God.
people want that.
Well, she was a beauty pageant contestant for years and was in the
Oh,
beauty pageant business, supplying gowns and coaching and all that kind of fun stuff. And then when she finally got out of that because she got tired of it, she decided that she wanted to stay on stage. But instead of dancing around in a gown and a crown, now she's flexing muscles and carrying barbells everywhere she goes.
wow.
But it's fantastic because when it comes to unloading the vehicle and moving all the illusions around,
Dear, would you get that into the case?
oh, I got a bad shoulder, my knees hurt, and she's just overhead pressing all my cases. It's like, what are you doing? So yeah, so she's amazing. One day when we have to move out of this house, I'll be sitting on the couch watching her do it all. So that's the plan.
So, in booking those shows, I was
Yeah.
talking with Dave Arch, and probably know Dave very well, in the Omaha, Nebraska area, and he has done a lot of school shows as well as doing some trade shows, but also as a corporate trainer is kind of what he kind of evolved into. But for a long time, he was doing a lot of school shows, and he was telling me where he had, I believe it was like the next door neighbor who would come over, and she would be the one who would make the calls, send out the lead contracts, and negotiate all of that. And then whenever they would negotiate a deal, or whether when she'd make an appointment with the principal, that she would go in with them, and then when it would come down to the price, then he would say, that's between you two. And so he'd get up and let the two of them kind of negotiate the price. So he wasn't in there. And then she may have to say, well, I'm going to have to check with him and get back with you to see if he could accept that or whatever. So it was kind of like having a person in between who would negotiate that. But anyhow, they had a great relationship and were working something out. Do you have a person who books your shows, or do you book those all yourself?
Yeah, no, good question. Absolutely. No, I do everything direct on my own. I'm a menu. You go to my website, my prices are right there. So you know exactly what you're paying for. You know exactly what you're getting. I even put full shows up on YouTube. So if somebody wants to check me out, they can watch the entire show before they bring me in. So I believe in being as transparent as possible. I don't want to sound like a used car salesman where one guy's paying one price, another school is paying another price. Then they get angry. So I don't
Good
want that
point.
at all.
Because I'm sure they talk with each other, don't they?
They talk with each other, absolutely. So here's the menu of prices. The
Right.
only thing that varies with me is, and it says on my website, if you're out of state, prices could be double. You know, travel is not included in this price. So that gives me the ability to feel them out. Getting back to your intro, at the end of the school year, schools do have a lot of money. In fact, in the past 2 weeks, I got 2 phone calls from 2 different schools that said, hey, we got a lot of money, we got to get rid of it. So charge me what you want to charge me. And also, we need
How
a
often do you
third
get
one.
those kind of phone calls?
Yeah,
Wow.
surprisingly, about 5 of them a year. About
Really?
five of them.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I got a phone call once from a school that said, "Hey, how much do you charge?" And I told her, and she said she was down in Kentucky, so it was a 7-hour drive for me. She goes, "Oh, good. We talked to somebody else, and he was about a fifth of that price. We don't want to pay that. We want to pay your price." And I'm like,
Okay.
okay. So I'm happy to come in and do that. And that's the thing with these schools, they've got this grant funding. So sometimes the negotiation just happens, you know, happily in my favor. And they just start throwing money at you. So the end of the school year is definitely a time for all that to start kicking in. And people even use money now to book programs for the fall. So I've got 2 schools that are on the books right now. They got to pay me now because they got to burn through the money.
Right.
And then the show's on the calendar for September. So I love those schools. Thank goodness for the government funding because it works out really well for me. But yeah, no, everything is transparent with me. You go to my website, you see my prices. Anyone can go there. It's assemblyshows.com. You can see what I do. You see my prices. I don't believe in negotiating or being a used car salesman. So that's where I'm at. Because everything
Yeah.
I do is it's very consistent. I know what I'm doing. I'm going into a school. Kids are going to be seated on the floor. I'll be set up in front. Teachers will be in the perimeter. They're my security guards. And I know exactly what's going to happen. There's no guessing if the sound is going to be bad or light's going to be bad because I bring all that with me. I know exactly what I'm doing, so I know exactly what the cost is going to be. And very, very rarely do we run into any kind of situation where I wish I charged more because, I've set my prices now to a point where it's like, hey, look, take it or leave it. I've been doing this 40 years now, and I've developed quite a reputation with the schools, and they'll seek me out and they'll pay what I ask for. And I don't like the negotiation process.
Do you factor in inflation? In other words, each year or every few years of saying, okay, well, gas prices have gone up and everything else
Yeah.
has too, and so therefore my prices are going to change. And they just accept that just as they do, I guess, as a school administrator, they've got to check off certain things like whenever they're getting food for the cafeteria, food prices are going up and everything then too. So they just think, okay, well, this is just another thing that's kind of going up.
We did a quick broadcast together. I was on one of your shows with Mario, the Maker Magician, and Julian Franklin,
That's right.
right around COVID time.
It was during COVID.
And you asked that question. You said, "What are you going to change coming out of COVID?" And I told you, I said, "I'm raising my prices." And that's what I did. It's a scary thing to raise your prices, but I had looked back over the past 5 years, and my price wasn't increasing more than $20 or so. So I basically just jacked my prices up about 30%, and then last year I jacked them up another 10%. And I was scared. I was afraid. If bookings started coming in slowly last fall, I'm like, what's going on? Do I start offering discounts? I don't want to be the discount
Right.
performer. But it eventually turned around and started coming, and now I know I'm set at the right price, without a doubt. And I've got friends that actually charge more than I do, but we're all pretty much in the same neighborhood of what the schools are paying right now. The brand new guys coming into it, they're charging a lot less because they don't know what the market is. They don't have the credibility factor, so they have a hard time getting it. But I love the cheaper entertainment, too, that comes in the schools because the school might have an $8,000 budget for assembly shows. They want 6 assembly shows. So some of the schools will hire the nature center to come in for $250 and bring in birds of prey. And I love those guys. Or they bring in the fire department for free and they do those assembly shows too. Then they take the bulk of the money and they give it to me. So makes me real happy.
Well, I would think that certainly everything, as I said, is going up, and you have to kind of go with. It makes sense to go up with the pricing. And I have talked with people who, after COVID, everything went up, and I don't mean just in magicians' prices, but also across the board with cost of cars and groceries, and I don't care what, housing, everything had gone up and quite a bit. It was like a slingshot. It was like everybody was waiting for this price escalation to go into effect. And once that we were out of COVID, which wasn't like a set date, it just kind of slowly happened. But all of a sudden, it was like, again, the slingshot just kind of took off and kind of had gone up. And everybody's like, well, I got a lot of money because I haven't over the last 2 years spent anything. So it's just been sitting there, and so I can afford to do that. And so there was no problem, and I think a lot of people were realizing that they could charge that and get that. And then after, of course, that was probably about 2022, I guess, whenever that happened. And as time had gone on, it's kind of like, well, I don't have that backlog of money in my savings like I thought I did because I spent it all in 23 and 24. Now it's 25 and 26. It's kind of like, maybe I should be more judicious with my purse strings. So anyhow, I just think that that would be something that people who are getting into school shows need to be aware of. And do they, since Abracadabra is going by the wayside, and for those who don't know, that is a magic convention for children's entertainers in particular, I guess, and that's going to be going away. But I assume that those conventions, they talked about business and contracts and things like this too.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you can go in a couple days early and they've got the business guys in there. They'll tell you, marketing techniques and Facebook ad techniques and all the little tricks and tips that you need to know to work yourself better. To tag on to what you said previously, part of the problem with prices going up is that the schools raising a lot of money through fundraisers, be it cookie sales or fun runs or whatever, and parents' purse strings were tight. So to buy the wrapping paper from the school and to buy the cookie dough,
Right.
that was being cut back. So the PTAs were not making as much money as they were. Then they found they got smart. Parents realized, listen, most of this money is going to the cookie dough company. We just want to give the school $100. I got 3 kids, here's $300. Or they do these fun runs. And now the schools have figured out. And when they do a fundraiser, they can make $20, $30, $40, $50,000 in their fundraisers for these PTAs. And the PTAs may cry poverty, and some of them do, rightly so. Others cry poverty, and they've got a giant pocket full of cash. In fact, I had a school locally call me, and they negotiated my price down. They're like, hey, you're in the area, and we're going to tie you into another school. Can you give us a better price? Well, I did. Well, when I showed up to this job, they said, okay, here's your start times, 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. I said, wait, time out. You guys only booked me for a 1 p.m. show. Here's the confirmation. Here's the contract. Here's the price we negotiated. Oh, can you do a second show? I said, yeah. How much is it? I told them a price. She goes, oh, that's fine. We have plenty of money. I'm like, just case in point. It's like, come on, please. But yeah, so it's a lot of fun. But getting back earlier too, it's markets too. Some schools pay more than others because of the states they're in, and a lot of those factors come into play. Government funding, Here's an ironic thing: the wealthiest neighborhoods in Michigan, I very rarely work. Typically, it's the blue collar areas that I'm into, and I think that goes back to Title I funding and those sorts of things.
Are there private schools, charter schools, I guess, that book
Oh
assembly
yeah.
shows as well?
Oh yeah. We have the Heritage Academies out here, the charter schools, and they're set up pretty richly for the grant money, which is really nice. I think even more so than the public schools for some reason. They're the ones that typically call me saying, "We have a lot of money to spend. Please take our money from us," rather than the public schools. And I don't want to sound like the greedy guy taking all the money from the kids, but it comes down to they run out of things to buy. They've already bought iPads for all the rooms. They've already upgraded their whiteboards. Now they're sitting in a chunk of cash, and the easy way to burn through it is to have 2 1-hour assembly shows in the afternoon and say goodbye to a chunk of it.
With those assembly shows, I know you got like a dozen different types of themed shows, and we kind of ran through a few of those, like math and science and bullying, anti-bullying, et cetera, et cetera. Are there schools, and so you come to them, and they obviously can watch those videos and say, hey, we want A, B, and C, or A, whatever, to come and do that, or do they say to you sometime, we've got a unique situation in which we had a lice situation, and kids should be careful about, taking care of themselves or getting inoculated. I don't know. In other words, does a school ever come to you with an agenda saying we would like a show with a theme of X?
Yes, and typically it's a joke. Typically, I had a school one year saying, "Hey, it's the Olympics this year. Can you do a show on the Olympics?" No, 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 I
Okay.
can't. You know, because minimally, my shows are big. Minimally, the lowest price cost of show that I have has $10,000 worth of props in it. You know, so I'm not going to develop a show. My largest show, my Diversity Circus Assembly show, has got $50,000 worth of props in it.
Wow.
Not to mention the ability to transport it, the trailer, the van, all those sorts of things. So if there's a great idea, I will tell you a funny story. I did work in a school in one of these blue collar areas once, and I knew this principal really well. And he came to me after my show and said, "Hey, next year we want your life skills show." What's a life skill? What are you talking about? He goes, "Here's what you need to know." And he hands me a 3-ring binder, okay, of basically all the lesson plans they're going to be using for character education. And I said, "Challenge accepted." He goes, "I'm going to book you next February 5th. You know, that's 14 months from now. You'll be my first performance, so we'll consider you to be the dress rehearsal." Happily, that show turned out to be one of my biggest sellers. It evolved into an anti-bully assembly show. And right after Columbine happened, all the schools were going, "Whoa, we got to do something about that." So a lot of the requests from schools organically develop out of what's going on politically. Okay.
Yeah.
Diversity has been a gigantic thing. I was doing my diversity show prior to the whole diversity thing becoming a political issue. But when it was a political issue, and it's kind of falling by the wayside now.
Before they
You
ever
were,
had the acronym of DEA or
yeah,
DEI.
oh, exactly. And my show is nothing. My show means we're different, we're the same. That's the message. It's Martin Luther King's message to the world. Judge people based on the content of their character, not the color of their skin.
Right.
How innocuous and innocent is that, you know?
Right.
But for a while, people were freaking out because they didn't know what I was doing. What are you doing? What's the diversity show? I got phone calls saying, "Are you talking about alternate lifestyles and two daddies in a
Wow.
home and
Okay.
marijuana use?" No, it's an elementary school show. These are
Yeah.
children. These are kindergartners. They're fifth graders. No, keep your adult issues over there
Yeah.
and let us have fun with the kiddos. And I do want to say this too. If people are interested in getting into assembly shows and doing the market, you're not working for 20 kids in a carpeted living room. You're working for 400 kids plus 30 teachers. And your props got to be big. You got to have the spectacle. You got to have the music. You got to have the proper sound equipment. You can't just take a birthday party show and drop it on a gym floor and expect it to play as well as it does in a living room.
That's some of the best advice right there. You cannot plug and play thinking, okay, I got a great birthday show. This is ready for the big time. No.
I will tell you this though, some schools will call and say, "Hey, we want something just for fun, okay? Just for fun. Bring us a just for fun magic show." That's where the birthday party guys may fit, but
okay.
again, everything has got to be bigger. The schools aren't looking necessarily for fun shows. The schools are looking for educational programs. What makes a performer successful in the schools is that we are giving them something they want. We're not pushing our product on them. We're pulling them to us because I'm saying, "Hey, I've got 2 reading shows. March is reading month. You know, I can promote literacy, and we can talk about books, and we can talk about, you know, language skills." And the schools get all crazy about it because I'm not just there to entertain them. I'm there to teach them and tie into their lessons as well. So I look at the schools, I find out what they want, and then we bring the show in. I started out with a really big show called The Adventures of Less Trouble Problem Investigator. It was a conflict resolution show. We taught the kids how to solve their problems peacefully without screaming and yelling. And it used iMessages, and it used brainstorming and listening skills, that sort of thing. And after doing the show once in a school a couple of years ago, a teacher came to me and says, "Oh my gosh, this is marriage counseling stuff you're doing in this show." You know, but the schools came to me and said, "We need something to teach kids how to get along." So I developed that show, and it hits people. These shows hit people in different ways. And I mentioned 30 school teachers in a gymnasium because you're not just entertaining the kids, you got to entertain those adults at the same time because they're the ones that are going to bring you back. They don't want a clown on stage with a 2x4 hitting himself in the head and watching the kids laugh because anybody can do that. You know, they want something that they cannot do in the classroom. And that's where we bring the spectacle. And I'm teaching the kids, there's even a part in one of my shows where I say, "Hey, did you figure it out yet? I'm teaching you stuff you guys already know. But these things are so simple, we forget them. You know, we forget these simple social cues and social skills. You know, so we're doing it again for you to show you how important this is and not to forget it." But it ties directly into the classroom activities. So there are, and when it comes to categories of shows, there's curriculum-based shows. So you got your history, your math, your science, your reading, those sorts of things. Then there's character education shows because the schools are tasked a lot of times with do all of this education, but in the meantime, teach the kids how to get along, teach them manners, teach them how not to beat each other up, teach them how to not bully. So these poor teachers are so overloaded that it's a heck of a lot easier for me to bring my Uncle Sam Comedy Jam show into a school in September instead of them having to teach the Constitution to a first grader. Right? They bring me in, and I turn those amendments into birthday presents, and we have a big old party. So I'm trying to fulfill demands to make the teachers' jobs a lot easier.
Well, it sounds very much like a trade show in which that you are looking at a company's product and you are trying to weave your magic around the message that they want to send. In other words, they're selling a product or a service or something, and the people who are passing by are not wanting to see a magic show. They're wanting to learn information about this new pipeline or this new vehicle or whatever. I mean, you live in Michigan, and I know that you've done some trade shows for like probably Ford Motor Company and other kinds of car manufacturers and everything. And dealing with them is very much like dealing, because it's very much a business kind of a thing. This is not like, again, booking a birthday party and, hey, Mrs. Jones, that your kid is going to have a birthday party and here's what I can do. You're looking at a much larger kind of a thing because, again, with trade shows, you're looking at thousands of people who are coming and going and trying to stop them and everything then too. But I'm just talking about the importance of dealing on a professional business level. It's a different kind of social skill or business skill, I should say, that you as a magician must have when you're trying to book these shows, just as it was difficult to try to book trade shows.
Well, it's all about presentation. It's all about image. It's all about the content of your show and the image you're presenting. You don't want to be showing up in ripped jeans and a T-shirt, to come into an elementary school. Security is so tight in these schools these days. You better look professional walking in the door, otherwise they're really going to question you. And I can tell you stories about sitting in school parking lots, having my lunch, and security being called on me. It's like, so you learn the hard way. If you get to a school earlier and you're having your lunch in the car, you call that school and say, hey, big gray van out front, that's me. I'm your assembly guy. I'm having lunch, making phone calls. Don't call security. I'll be checking into the office in half an hour. But I did spend 18 years doing auto shows for Chevrolet. In fact, that's kind of what gave me my kick in the butt to start turning magic into educational messages. And when I wrote my book, I have a book called Entertaining Education. My premise basically is that the number one way to make money in this business, if you're not going to be a superstar in Las Vegas, is to do educational programs. And people are like, well, I don't want to do an educational program. How boring is that? Well, every trade show guy out there making $3,000 a day is doing educational magic, right? Every speaker who's out there doing magic tricks, being a keynote speaker, they're just turning it into a keynote speech, right? You got people like, Lucy Darling, who's kicking butt right now, right? She's doing basic stand-up comedy with a crowd doing 3 magic tricks, that's a different genre altogether. But my point basically is to be successful and make money and have the dream life you want to have. Educational magic's where it's at. And the schools were natural for me because I wanted to be home with my kids. I wanted to be home when they got off the bus. I wanted to pick them up, from the bus stop. So I wanted a job where when they're at school, I'm at school. When I'm home, they're home. And so that's where it came from. Plus, who else is going to be working a Tuesday afternoon at 1 o'clock doing magic shows? Nobody, unless you're in the middle of a trade show or you are working in elementary schools. So you've got 10 time slots every week to do a school show, morning and afternoon, Monday through Friday, with the weekends off.
You talked about doing school shows in elementary schools, and I'm wondering about colleges as well. Now, college is a completely different kind of a thing, and you've never worked that college circuit, is that right?
I will tell you this, the college circuit is dying. You can talk to guys like Michael Kent, who are really big college show guys, and nobody's showing up to these programs anymore. They just aren't doing it. I don't know if COVID was a big factor in eliminating that, but some guys used to sell out huge theaters and stuff for their shows, and now they're struggling to get 10 people in the audience at the Union Hall to watch their magic show. So I'm not an expert in college shows, but I do know some guys that are doing them or have done them, and they're starting to see some major changes going on.
That's exactly right. I've spoken with C.J. Johnson and Brian Brushwood, both of who were titans in the industry. Brian has backed off a long time ago. C.J. has gone a different direction in which he's selling game shows, and that's a little bit different. And so it's not a magic show or a hypnosis show, although he does have a great hip act. But yes, I know that is another area that is changing, and as I recall, has a lot to do with technology. That is, I say kids, college students on their phones and getting information that way and doing that rather than looking at the stage and seeing what's going on. They really disassociate themselves from seeing live entertainment sometimes. But going back to working for like elementary schools or for younger children, I know David Kay has in his book talked about different age children when you're doing birthday parties. And I saw him in a convention one time in which he was showing the difference between kids who are 5 to 8 years old and others are 8 to 11 and others that are 12 to 18 or whatever. You could do the same trick but a completely different presentation. I'm assuming that you likewise when you're doing an elementary school versus a junior high or even a high school, which I assume you do then as well, all those are completely different kinds of shows and may even have different messages, or they could be the same message with different presentations.
Oh, 100%. The schools will call all the time and say, hey, should we do one show or two shows? And I'm like, well, you can do one if you got 300 or 400 kids. We can get them all in the gym happily. Well, will you change the show if we break it into two groups? Sure, I'll change it. And I don't. But the attitude, the comedy, the some of the terminology, like in my science show, I'm not going to talk about, centrifugal force with little kids, but I'll talk about it with the older kids. We're not going to talk about, kinetic energy with the bigger kids, or with the bigger kids. We won't with the little kids, we will with the bigger kids. So sure. So basically I will do the exact same show with a different attitude, different demeanor, different presentation. For little kids, of course, it's sillier, like David K points out. For the older kids, it's more mature. But the older kids, what's nice about older kids is you can give them crap and they'll give it right back to you.
Give it right back, yeah.
Right around third or fourth grade, they start to understand sarcasm. They start to go, okay, this guy's screwing with us. You know what I mean? And we're going to screw right back with him. And it's the best way to keep the kids in control is to become one of them, basically, and let them give it to you. And it's funny because sometimes I'll praise an audience after a show. I'll tell the teachers, oh my God, your kids are fantastic. I love them. I really want to come back. Some schools I never want to go back to. And that's the truth because the kids are horrible. But some schools I absolutely love. And I'll tell them, your kids were fantastic. Oh, really? We thought they were kind of loud. I'm like, no, that's what I want. That gives me the energy that I can give back to them, So I like that byplay, that interplay. As long as they're coming right back down and listening to the message and then getting hyped up again and coming back down. Sometimes they get up here and they stay up here and I can't get them back. And that's, I don't know what that is. But a lot of time it's filters down from the principal all the way down to the teachers. I can walk into a school, meet the principal, meet the teachers, and I know how the kids are going to be. It's a fact because that attitude just filters right down. If the principal never meets me, if the principal never comes to introduce me, if the principal never welcomes me into the school, I'm like, oh, we got a problem.
Yeah.
Because he treats the teachers that way. And now the teachers are going to treat me that way. And the kids
filters down.
And the kids will see the teachers treating me that way. Or whether it's subconsciously or very overt, then you got a problem. I did a lot of shows for Dow Chemical back when I got started, and Dow Chemical booked me in 300 schools in the Midland area. And my job basically was to show up, do a great science show, compliments of Dow Chemical, because a lot of the employees, kids were in these buildings, and I'd do my show. Well, I'd show up. Hi, I'm Doug from Dow Chemical for the science show. Yeah, you're in the gym. Where's the gym?
Thank you.
Down the hall on the left. Go down the hall on the left. Didn't have the table for me. Don't have the chairs for me. I can't. Got to beg. Find a custodian. People come pouring into the gymnasium. Teachers, there's no chairs for them because no one put those out. Now I'm putting out chairs for teachers. No one introduces me. I do my show and I leave. And I used to get pissed.
Yeah.
I used to get really pissed by that. But then I had to change my mindset. Realize, time out a second. I'm not a guest in their school. These people are a guest at my show. So I have
that's a different perspective.
I have to be the host. I have to welcome them, make sure they're comfortable, do my job. And if no one gives me introduction or closes the show afterwards, I will do that myself, send everybody away. Because I could walk in there pissed off and the show, they're going to see it. But if you change your attitude and go, okay, this is the situation we're in. It's my party. They're coming to my house. I'm going to welcome them. We're going to have a good time. And it would change. It's all about attitude. It really is all about attitude.
Coming up on the 9th of May is going to be the annual Salute to Magic in New York City at the Lincoln Center. And we have with me right now someone who is going to be the recipient of not only the guest of honor, but most importantly, the Magician of the Year. And I'm excited to talk with him today. Here he is right now, Rudy Kobe. Hey, Rudy.
Thank you. How are you, Scott?
The world's coolest magician. There you are, man. So excited about this. Are you excited too? I mean, you're from New York City, so this is going to be great
Oh,
coming back home now.
yeah, I'm actually from upstate New York. So
Yeah.
I was born in Goshen, New York, upstate, and so I would always make the trek down to New York City. So my very first magic award, and one of my few magic awards, was for the SAM local assembly in Middletown, New York, that Jeff McBride created, the Cardini Assembly, when I was 12 years old. So this is really weird to get the major SAM award 50 years later in New York City. I feel like I finally made it.
And I think it's also kind of funny. I had mentioned this earlier when I was talking with Joe Setti and one of the other promos about this convention. That is that you were born just a few doors down in the same hospital as Jeff McBride.
Yeah, I was born in the same delivery room. There was one bedroom delivery room in Goshen, Newark. So yeah, we were born. That's pretty strange. So I think I'm pretty sure we have different mothers and fathers, but it's questionable, you know. We both look like the mailman a little bit. I don't so.
Very funny. So now you have, I assume, then been attending like Tannins and a lot of other things out in New York City when you were younger that really got you
Yes.
started.
Yeah, I mean, New York City is my spiritual home because I would sneak down there every weekend and go to Tennant's Magic Shop. I would sneak into Tennant's Jubilee every year in upstate New York, and yeah, and I would sneak into a Broadway show every Saturday. I would take the 2 hour train down there, and I would second act. I had a little sports coat I would wear at Tannen's, and then during the intermission, I would sneak back in with all the people that came out for a smoke and watch the second act of every show. So
Wow.
I learned a lot.
Now, speaking of magic, speaking of the show, I assume that you're going to be doing a little performance as well. You're just not going to walk in, take the award, and say thanks, see you later, or are you going to be
Yeah,
performing something, or what's the
yeah,
plan?
I'm
Do you
going to
know?
perform. Yeah, I'll be performing. I'm closing the show with the stuff people expect me to do, four legs and chainsaw kind of stuff, and
Right.
maybe some surprises.
Yeah, even though that New York claims you, of course, the world owns you because you are every place all over the world and have that kind of act that can work without any language barrier, wherever it would be throughout the world. And it's just been phenomenal to watch the growth of your
Oh, thank you.
of your character and your act and everything, the way that it has grown. So I want to congratulate you very much for being the Magician of the Year. I
Oh,
know
thank
they've
you.
had some great ones who have been
Thank you.
honored in the past there, I guess, like Joe Devlin, I guess Jeff McBride and others. And so I know this year, speaking of Joe Devlin, that he's going to be there as one of the performers, as well as Margaret Steele, Wayne Allen, and then it's going to be Erica Camps, who's the MC. And then there's going to be an afternoon show, and there will be an evening show, and there'll be a 5:30 and 8 o'clock. The 8 o'clock show will be the one where you are going to be getting your award. Do you know, will you be performing in the afternoon show even though you're not getting an award, or are you just
Yeah, yeah,
performing at night?
I'm performing in both, and also Anna Rose is on the show. Also, she was
Oh, that's
added,
fantastic. I
and
didn't know she's coming along with you
yeah.
too.
So we're gonna, and we may do something special together for the second half. But yeah, the I think the later show is where they present the award, and it may even be slightly longer because the first show has to end so the second show can begin. So
Yep, that makes sense, certainly. Well,
yeah,
congratulations again on
thank
a
you.
job well done and a life finally being honored as the Magician of the Year at the annual Salute to Magic on May the 9th at the Lincoln Center. Be sure and check it out, and you can get your tickets. You can just go to pa1magicclub.org for tickets for that evening. Thank you.
And
Appreciate it, Ruby.
I haven't seen a lot of my New York friends, and after the show, I'll see you in the lobby to say hi and give you a hug.
Sounds great. Have a great show.
Thank you.
Attitude, so.
Do you have a recorded message that introduces you?
No, I do it live. I do it live backstage. Music plays, and I do it live backstage because I may want to alter it. Kids don't care who I am. They don't care what I've done. They don't care what my name is. They're not going to remember it, you know. So music plays backstage. When the show starts, I'll do a live introduction based on what happens, whether it's remember your audience manners or just here's the show or whatever it might be. I may alter it a tad just to fit the situation. Pre-recorded, Yeah, I don't like that generic fit.
It's just that I know it does sometimes need to be said by you or in a recorded message, because if you hand your person, whoever it is, if it's a corporate party or whether it's school or whatever, they're going to mispronounce the words, or they're
Oh
going to
yeah.
stumble, or they may not like to public reading or whatever, and they're going to mess it up. So it's better that you do it yourself.
Yeah, not in a school. In a school, you've got teachers, you've got principals. They are used to talking to groups. So you've got
That's
a group of
true.
people. You got a group of people who are extemporaneous speakers, all day long. So when they say, "What do you want me to say?" It's called diversity circus. Remind the kids of their manners. I find that when someone of authority introduces my show, the kids respect, the
Yeah.
show always goes better. If
Huh.
I just have to walk out and do the show blind and just introduce myself, this must not be that important. Nobody was here to tell us to pay attention. And so I definitely see a reflection of that. It happens 95% of the time. Yeah, so.
You had said also something earlier about coming in with torn jeans and all that kind of a look. I know your show is completely themed, including your costume. I mean, you
Yeah.
were talking about the thousands of dollars that you have of props and everything, which supplements and supports the theme that you're trying to do. And then you may be wearing, I know, like maybe a pith helmet and a safari outfit or something like that. And yet, I was thinking when you talk about the ripped jeans and whatnot, that is something that kids would wear, and maybe they could relate to if somebody comes in looking like them, if they're trying to be like a hip hop magician or something like that. I think that it could work if that is your character, but not if that's you just don't care. There's a difference between a character and caring, I guess.
Exactly. I think we see it transform above much higher than us. Musicians used to wear nice suits. You go back to the 60s, the
Even the
Beatles,
Beatles,
the
yeah,
Beatles were in suits.
yeah,
Johnny
and
Cash was in
ties,
a
yeah,
suit. They were all in suits. They all looked good. And then music changed, and then suddenly you got guys wearing scarves and ripped jeans, and
right,
Aerosmith's showing up with just God knows what they're wearing. But I
yeah,
think it filters down to magic. And when I started seeing people wearing t-shirts, well, David Blaine, I think, was a big,
good
factor
point.
in magicians dressing down. When his show came out, he's walking around in a black t-shirt. No one had done that yet.
Yeah,
We were still wearing tuxedos and frilly shirts and vests and everything, right?
yeah.
But it's not hard to look good or look a little stylish. It's if people would just clean their shoes. It's like
Yeah,
just clean your shoes for Pete's sakes, okay?
yeah.
I've got a set of shoes in every one of my show boxes, so the shoes I walk in the door with are not the ones I wear on stage, because I want them to be, as crisp as they can be.
I know. I remember hearing stories, gosh, about vaudevillians who would put their pants on just before they came on stage because they wanted to have a nice crease, and they would never sit down in those pants.
No, they hang them on nails backstage.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, that's
yeah,
exactly. It's all about the details. The success, I think, is in details. It really is. Those details are tiny and minute. No one's going to notice them. But then when you have 300 of them, it's like death by 1,000 cuts. It's just the opposite. 1,000 little stitches is going to make a beautiful picture. So it's all about keeping your props clean. It's all about maintaining a proper sound system. And if your sound system's beat up and ugly, it's so easy to throw a big black piece of fabric over that and stick it off in the corner.
hmm
Sound's still going to come right through it, but it's not going to look like a pile of wires and garbage sitting off in the corner.
That's a good
And that,
point.
again, it's a tiny detail, but it's just it just makes the show just that much more professional. Because that's kind of what it's all about, is professionalism. When I was developing all my shows, I got to a point where I was doing 300 schools a year. I thought, okay, what's the next step? I'd get up and go to the bathroom at 2 in the morning and go, how long can I do this? You know what I mean? I got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, drive for an hour and a half, do a school, spend middle of nowhere at lunchtime, eat my lunch in my van and do a school in the afternoon. And while the money was really good and I was able to be home with the kids, I'm like, this is kind of becoming really routine. So the 12 shows, of course, keep the shows fresh because I'm always bringing in new programs to the schools. But then I thought, what's the next step? And this is something that always bothered me. Magicians were always very protective with, that's my line, that's my joke, that's my trick.
hmm
And it's like, okay, I get that. We got to respect creativity, But what if someone decides to sell those jokes or sell those tricks? Well, now it's okay. We can all do it, right? So I felt the same way about my school shows. I didn't want guys doing my science show in Michigan, but I thought, why don't I find some top guys from around the country, teach them my science show, license them my science show, and sell the science show? You know, they get a cut of money. I get to sit home and make money. And this is where you asked earlier about an agent. I teamed up with a national agency who sells the shows. So now I've taken my entrepreneur. I used to think an entrepreneur was a guy who had a business, and I thought I was an entrepreneur. Well, I wasn't, and we're not. We're job owners. We own a job. We do a job. You know, we're sole proprietors. We work by ourselves 95% of the time. You know, but how do you take it from that step of cranking it out over and over and over again? And I took the opposite approach. Instead of keeping stuff so close to my chest, I just sent it out there. That's why all of my shows are on video now, and you can watch them on YouTube. Everything is there. And if someone steals a trick or a routine, it's not going to hurt me in any way. You know, but if I can also get guys to license my shows out there, you know, and give them permission to do this and sell them, you know, it takes the whole thing to another business level altogether. And that's part of what we talked about earlier, different business presentations. When these schools recognize that not only do I perform these shows, but I also manage a team of 20 guys out there doing my shows, it kind of takes it to a completely different level, not just of quality of the show, but of respect for what I am offering. You know, and they can feel lucky. The nice thing about it is, too, I've got these 20 guys doing my science show. We're on a Facebook group together. If someone comes up with a great bit or finds a new science experiment, we all share it together, because I don't care if some guy in Arkansas is doing this. It's not going to hurt me in an elementary school. You know, let's just pick up these great ideas. And it makes the shows 10 times better, because now we got 20 guys masterminding, you know, what's the best way to do this. And some guys are experts in puppetry, and some guys are experts in comedy magic. Some guys do illusions. You know, we can all bring our ideas together, collaborate, and create a better product. Because I believe that if someone goes into a school and does a crappy magic show or a crappy school assembly show, it's going to affect me. So I don't want that. I want to raise the bar. I want to raise the bar and keep raising the bar, so that everybody out there, even if they're my competitor, I want them to do a great job. The one thing that hurts me the most is when, oh, we had so-and-so, it was terrible, and oh my God, we're never going to have them again, and we didn't think we were ever going to have assemblies again. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I can't have this guy out there destroying the market, you know?
Right.
So what if I raise him up somehow, you know, and make his show better? That's kind of my underlying philosophy for what I do.
So the ones who are working with your program and they are duplicating some of the same types of things, of whether it's science or whatever type of a thing, let's say they have an idea, they want to go off and do something on their own. Do some of them kind of split off, or do they still continue to pay you even though that they're doing, I don't know, another type of a show for another school? Or
Sure.
in other words, do they use that as a launch pad for their
Yeah.
career?
Absolutely. They buy my show, and when they buy the show, they have the right to go off and sell it in their market, and I give them a 200-mile radius. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's a pretty big market for them. I keep guys separated so they're not going to crisscross into people's radiuses, and they're welcome to sell the show and make as much money as they can on it. In the meantime, I'm going to sell your show too, you know. So I'm gonna use my team, my management team, the agency that I use, and they're going to get out there, they're going to push it, they're going to sell it. You make money on it, we'll make money on it. Everybody's going to be happy.
Everybody's happy. Yeah, it's a win-win kind of a thing, and nothing better than passive income, for sure.
You know what's funny too? It's like I'll hand these guys these shows, and ultimately over time, things don't work out for them, and the shows become their own basically. And after a while, I'll give you a quick story. I was reading the success books. Remember the success books put out by Magic Incorporated?
Yes, I do. Yeah, that was
Plastic
Francis Marshall.
binders.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember sitting in the back of my dad's car when we were driving to see Grandma, flipping through those things, dreaming about being, you know, some kind of magician or something. But I completely lost my train of thought on that altogether now. I go off onto a tangent and I lost it. What did you just ask me?
Well, I just think those success books were a good launching pad for a lot of magicians into a lot of areas.
What I was going to say was this. I was reading Dick Oslin, God rest his soul, his Boy Scout environmental magic show. I'm like, oh, this is cool. So I developed an environmental show. And after 20 years of doing it, I thought, oh, this is all unique. This is all my material. I created all this. I'm so proud of myself. Well, I went back to that success book and I flipped it open just to read Dick's old presentation. I'm like, 90% of what I'm doing was Dick's. It was his, you know, but he so generously published that routine and the whole show he published. And it wasn't my style. His delivery wasn't my style, but a lot of the tricks and the messages directly into my act. So
Now, getting into that also, I should say getting into the larger schools, or I should say schools with larger attendance and everything. One I would suggest, I would think, would get started like with library shows where you
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
smaller audience. I mean, certainly birthday parties where that, I mean, if you don't like kids, you shouldn't be in this business, period. And then going though from birthday parties then to libraries, and then next, I guess, to school assemblies. Would that be a natural progression?
100%. That was pretty much my route. I stayed out of libraries for a long time though. I actually got discovered doing a show at a mall. This library cooperative guy saw me and said, "Hey, you want to do library shows?" I'm like, "What's a library show?" Yeah, but definitely because the libraries are bigger ballrooms. Typically, you can bring in bigger props and bigger sets, and you not going to work, again. But libraries, a lot of them are very young kids. They're preschoolers and a couple brothers and sisters. Generally speaking, it's all second grade and under, so you've got a younger set than you would at an elementary school. If you're going to write an elementary school show, you want to target like the third or fourth grade in terms of the educational content. The little kids will play catch up. The thing is, little kids are learning. They're learning the same things that fifth graders are learning. They're just learning the very basics of it. Fifth graders are getting into geometry. Little kids are learning about what a parallelogram is. So it's the same content. It's just more advanced as it goes up. So if you're targeting elementary schools and you're looking to do material, you want to target the third or fourth grade educational level. You want to target that material they're learning because that material is a kind of a preview for the younger kids and it's a review for the older kids. So if you were to go into a school and do just one show, doing the third or fourth grade content, that material targets basically everybody.
Is it just me, or is this your observation then as well that children are getting smarter at younger ages, or maybe they are pushing some things to lower groups than when, I mean, I didn't learn math whenever I was in, I mean, the level of math today that kids are in elementary school. I don't know, because maybe of technology, because you have access to a computer. I mean, back then I was using a slide rule, but that wasn't until you get into
Yeah.
high school or something. And so I'm just asking, do you think, or is that true that it seems like that they're pushing kids to learn faster, earlier?
Maybe. I mean, you can enter elementary school now at 5, or used to have to be 6. They're starting kids earlier, but I think that's only society demanding because moms want to go to work and so do dads. They want to get the kids
Yeah.
out of the house. But if you look at test scores, national test scores for reading and math are terrible. So I think kids are more street smart and kids are definitely more resilient. Kids aren't as easily frightened by anything. Yeah, I'll give you an example. I do danger tricks in my show. I do a couple danger tricks in my show. I have Jim Steinmeyer's audience acupuncture, where a little boy comes on stage and we run a bed of nails through him. And
As you do.
as you do. Now, prior to say 9/11, because 9/11 was a turning point. It really was in the schools. Prior to 9/11, kids would see that and would invariably have a couple kids break down and cry.
Yeah.
Basically. In fact, I remember one time a kindergarten teacher marched her kids back into the cafeteria after the show and she sat them down and she demanded I tell those kids that was just a magic trick and explain how it was done.
Really?
And yeah. And I sat down with the kids and I said, "Who was scared? Who was scared by this?" And they raised their hand. I go, "Is it okay to be scared?" The teacher goes, "No, it's not okay to
Holy
be
moly.
scared." I said, "Yes, it is okay. Being scared keeps you safe. If you're on the playground, a bee started landing on your forehead, you stand there and wonder what the bee's going to do? No, you run away, So she was denying the children just their regular emotions. So I didn't tell anybody how the trick was done, but we had a conversation about feelings and that we're all safe and this is a safe environment. And what better place to be scared and learn that it's okay to be scared, that surrounded by your teachers and all your friends. So kids have changed. I don't get kids crying anymore when I do the nail trick. They're like, "Yeah, blood and guts." They're cheering and screaming.
Well, there again, I think that they're probably used to seeing that. I mean, on television and streaming videos and maybe even on Instagram. I mean,
Their video games, yep, their video games are violent, sure.
exactly right. So I would think that they are used to that. And likewise, I think with some speech, either at home or again in the media, that things seem to have loosened up. I don't know when it happened or how, but it seems like that what things are said that seem to be accepted today that weren't yesterday. And I got to wonder, where is this going? I mean, hey, how far will the pendulum go before it goes all the way around and kicks you in the butt? I don't know.
Oh no, exactly. Yeah, exactly. The trouble with the schools nowadays too is kids are so much more damaged than they were in the past in terms of their health. We've got a crisis of obesity in schools. We've got a crisis of autism is a crisis. ADHD. The foods the kids are eating is not any kind of help whatsoever. But I have teacher friends who have retired that said, I can't take it anymore. These kids are they no longer have the manners, they no longer have the patience, they no longer have the attention span, because something's going on, and it's a tragic thing, and it's difficult. It's interesting though. I don't find that universally in all districts. I do find it in more so and more prevalent in some districts than in other districts. We also got a lot of schools nowadays that are English as a second language, which is fantastic. I love the melting pot of kids coming in, but a lot of these kids come into school not speaking a single language. I did a school in Washington D.C. suburbs. They spoke 640 languages in that one
What?
school alone. In that one school alone.
Holy
Yeah,
cow.
these kids. It was ridiculous. The kids were beautiful. Oh my God, those gorgeous faces and those colors of their skin and their eyes, and just beautiful, beautiful children. But I got this. This brings me back to something you mentioned earlier. If you're going to be doing school shows, the first thing is you need to love kids. You got to love kids more than you love doing magic shows. You got to love kids more than you like performing or teaching. Because if you don't love kids, passionately love them and adore them and just value them, you're not the guy to be doing school shows. You really aren't. That's
Well,
primarily.
that is another thing too, as far as loving kids, and I am very much a tactile person,
Hmm.
and that is not something that is acceptable today. In other words, you can't hug kids. There are certain things you can and can't do as far as touching that might be appropriate or inappropriate. Even on stage, when you're moving a child, I think from
Ah,
one side to the other. I
ah.
assume that you've had problems with that from time to time.
Isolated incidences, basically. If a kid's not standing still, I'll grab them by the shoulder or something and move them
Well,
and
they
be
could be
really.
autistic also when you're trying to do that.
Oh well, the instance I'm thinking of was just that. When you touch a child that is on the spectrum, sometimes it's like shards of glass going through their body. And so it's incredibly difficult. And I did have one teacher criticized me, or a parent criticized me, because I grabbed the kid 3 or 4 times, and I don't grab them, I guide them. Typically, I'm grabbing their shirt and pulling them. I don't want to grab their arm. I want to pull them by their shirt and try to
Yeah.
adjust them, so I'm not actually physically touching them. But yeah, and people are very sensitive, and I get it. And you have to be aware of those sensitivities in terms of was acceptable to one person and not to others. And I think the level of acceptance has definitely changed. I mean, heck, let's go back to the '60s where nuns were paddling children in elementary schools, right? And,
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
and things change for the better. Definitely, it's all about mutual respect, without question.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that certainly has changed. I remember my brother who was, he had graduated like in '59, I think, from high school, but he had retired to paddle because whoever got paddled the most in that year, each time that someone got the paddle, they would get assigned the paddle, and he had his signature on there more times than anyone else. So they gave him the paddle and retired it for that year, and then it started all over the next year, with somebody different.
That is
But
hysterical.
the amazing
That's
thing was, that my brother was a valedictorian of the school. He was an All-American football player. He went to the Air Force Academy. He was a colonel in the Air Force. I mean, he was very
sure
successful in so many other ways. But he was the one that
unbelievable.
got paddled the most. And yeah, you can't do that
No,
anymore.
love it, love it, love it, love it. Absolutely. And here's the thing: even with these kids who are on the spectrum, I'll go into a school and they'll have a child having a breakdown in the middle of the gymnasium floor, and the show's going to start in 5 minutes. And some of these teachers, they're not even allowed to touch the child, even if it comes to a point of. In fact, I asked this to. I was in a special needs school recently, and I asked one of the parapros. I said, "Listen, one of your kids came running at my backdrop and basically dove on the floor, practically knocking it over and sliding under it. And there's some heavy equipment backstage. I don't want that kid smashing into the heavy equipment. Am I wrong to physically restrain that child?" And
Hmm.
she said, "I don't know."
Wow. If you
What?
don't, then who does?
Yeah, I said, well, can you find out and get back to me? You okay? Because I'm protecting this child from being hurt. And if I do nothing, I'm more at fault for doing the wrong thing.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah, damned
So
if you do and damned if you don't. Wow.
exactly, exactly. But some of these kids are having breakdowns. Their teachers aren't allowed to pick them up or touch them. They just have to talk them or lure them, out of the gymnasium or back to class somehow. I see it all the time.
Well, I think that is something that, again, is a direction, unfortunately, that some schools are going, or maybe just society is going in general.
It
It's
is,
not
yeah.
just at schools, I'm
No,
sure.
no, no.
I mean, you're at
It's a
restaurants,
society.
and I've seen these kinds of activities that it's like, this is not acceptable behavior.
No, it's not. It's not. It's
Or on
tough.
the airplane with the flight attendants and things like that. I mean, why are people doing what they're doing? I don't know. I'm sounding like an old man now.
No, it's okay. I'll give you a perspective on that, though. My son is on the spectrum. He was diagnosed back when he was about 3 or 4 years old. And Grandpa brought him to one of my library shows, and he sat in the back of the library show, and he was disruptive, and people complained about it. And this is back, this is way back. This is before autism was really a thing and people knew what it was, And I was incredibly proud of him because he was able to be in that room. He had already jumped over 2 mountains to get to the point where he could be in a room surrounded by people and sitting still. Yet people were still complaining about his activity and his behavior, So I almost equate it to, looking at a 450-pound guy and saying, man, he's obese, he's huge, he's fat, he's going to die. You don't know. That guy may have just lost 200 pounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
He
true.
may be at one of the best shapes of his life, and he's, you can't criticize the guy for what he is right now because you don't know his story or where he came from. And that is a lot of it, how it is with the kids on the spectrum, too. A lot of these kids cannot come into a gymnasium because it's too echoey or too noisy or those lights are buzzing or there's too much. I'm afraid of what's behind that curtain, But to bring them in is just a gentle step in getting them acclimated to being part of society. And you'll hear these kids yell out in the show. It is distracting, but it's not to the rest of the audience because those kids all accept it and recognize it and know what it is. So these teachers are doing a great job getting these kids mainstreamed into society, And as performers, we have to, I don't want to say tolerate it because I hate the word tolerate. It sounds like we're putting up with something we hate, but we have to accept it and welcome it and use it to make ourselves and our shows better.
You mentioned earlier about also how that the teachers are trying to get the kids to be quiet. And then you're saying, no, I want you to kind of get going. How do you reverse that and then also make sure they walk back to their respective classrooms quietly? In other words, how do you get them pumped up and how do you bring them back down? That's a
Different
real
shows.
secret.
Yeah, different shows, different techniques. In my diversity circus show, I read one of Barry Richardson's books once. I forgot, Theater of the Mind or whichever one it was. And he said the strongest way to close his show is with a poem. And Barry was really big on using a poem in some of his talks to close the show. And I'm like, that sucks. That sounds horrible. Right? But I started closing my diversity circus show with I'd make a newspaper tree. You know what a newspaper tree is.
Sure.
And throughout that newspaper tree, there's a poem that goes alongside of it. And the poem talks about the 4 points we talked about in today's show and encapsulates it all and it sends everybody back. So after we do this big, raucous, fun diversity circus assembly show with giant costumes and sawing a kid in half and all these fun activities, we bring the kids right back down again. We close with that poem and the kids are mellow and I turn them back to the teachers and the music comes on and they go walking out of there. Now sometimes though, I don't want to do that. Sometimes I want to turn the kids on and leave them on. But 99% of the time from an assembly show, kids either go to lunch or they go to recess. And that's where they get to burn off that energy. So some guys will say, oh my gosh, you got to do a silent dismissal. To me, that just drags everything down. I'm not the guy who's in charge of that. That's not my show. I come in, sometimes I get you hyped up, I get you energized, I get you motivated. I want you to go to the library or whatever it might be. Say goodbye. Wait for your teachers to tell you to stand up and go back to class single file line. And the teachers accept all that. So I don't like to. I tried that silent dismissal idea a couple times. Hated it. It wasn't me. Some guys are praised for it. Me, not my picture.
Yeah, I remember seeing Tim Hannig, I believe it was, do that one time, I think at a Magi Fest, in which they had a lot of children there on a Saturday morning, and he had them all hyped up and frothed up and just jumping out of their seats.
Yeah.
But by the end, he said, okay, you're going to be going back to your buses. And I don't remember what he did, but there was some magic sauce that all of a sudden they were holding their hands in front of themselves and walking down the aisle, quiet as a church mouse. It's like, how do you do that? That was amazing.
Tim's the master. Tim's one of the best. Yeah. Definitely, definitely.
So you were talking about how also you don't have your circles cross with other people or other magicians, or do you occasionally? They'll say, "Well, we had like in that case, let's say Tim here last year, or whoever it might be."
Sure. Yeah.
Then and you know what kind of shows they have, and they'll
Yeah.
say, "Well, my shows are going to be different." But you want to have do they often have more than one magician in a year at schools, or
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the distinction. If you go on my website, you're not going to see the word magic mentioned anywhere until you get to my
oh,
Laugh Factory comedy show, because I don't
okay,
sell myself as a magician, because I don't want to compete with everybody. Oh, we saw a magician at the festival or the fair. He was making balloon animals. I'm like, oh my God, stop making balloon animals. I don't want to be, and those guys are fantastic, and I love them. I got friends that do that kind of stuff. But I don't want to be in the category of we saw a magician once and be a magician. In fact, I'll tell you a really quick story. I did my Uncle Sam show at a school once, and the PTA lady loved me. And she goes, "We want to bring you back. Do you have more shows?" I go, "Yeah, here's my brochure." I got 4 shows at the time. And she marches me into the principal's office and goes, "You didn't see the show, but he was amazing. I want to bring him back. Here's his flyer. At the top it says Scheer Magic Productions." And he looked at it and goes, "We don't hire magicians." And he pushes the brochure back, and that was the end of the story. You just had one of my shows, and they loved it. So I ran home and I immediately changed my company name to Sheer Genius Assembly Shows, just to get rid of the idea of magic, because I don't want to be in that group. But I will tell you this too: if someone does a trick that's similar to mine, or we do the same thing. I was going into a school that a magician friend of mine booked me into, and he goes, "Hey, Doug, I do that paper tree in my environmental shows, so you can't do the paper tree in your diversity circus show." I'm like, "Watch me," okay? Because here's the thing: to you or I, a year goes by like that.
right,
To a child, a year is an eternity ago.
true.
And not only do they hardly remember what they saw, but they want to see it again. They watch the same episode on TV over and over and over again. Why don't they love your show over and over again? I had one school for, I think it was 8 consecutive years, brought in my Halloween show every year. All the surprises the kids knew were coming. They knew the magic tricks. They knew what was going to happen. But they watched it and loved it like they saw it for the first time, even though some of those kids saw it every year throughout their entire elementary school career. So we go in wondering about those things. Not something to worry about.
Not something to worry about. Yeah,
Not something
yeah.
to worry about.
There are plenty of other things, I'm sure, to concern yourself with whenever you're going to be doing these kinds of shows.
I'll do the same show. I'll be called back. In fact, I'm going to a school next week that had me just last year do the same show. And invariably, I will hear teachers say to me, "Oh my gosh, you really changed your show a lot from last year." No, I didn't. You're just paying attention to different things now, and things are striking you now, but they didn't strike you before. That's all it is.
That's a very
That's
good
fun.
point.
It's fun.
Because I'm thinking about doing corporate shows that I will, if I'm working for the same company, because in that particular case, you do have the same employees for the most part who are going to be coming back year after year after year for
Yeah.
Christmas
Oh
parties.
yeah.
Whereas in schools, you got kids that are washing out, or I should say, moving up and moving on. And so you got a new group of people. So you can do the same kind of a show. Whereas in a corporate environment, it's like, oh, we saw that last year. Well, I've got a completely different show. So you got to, that's different if you're working for the same company as opposed to the same school.
Exactly. Yeah, it's it's a completely different situation. In my goal was to have 12 different shows, so I could do 2 schools a year, two shows in a school every year, and then just repeat it. 6 years of shows, then bring me back and let's do all 12 shows again.
I think that's what David Ginn does too.
Okay, sure, it makes sense.
Seems like I talked with him about that some time ago. Well, thank you very much for your time. This has been fantastic, and pulling some of your time away. I know that you're busy and you have a show you got to drive to. How far do you have to drive today for this one?
Normally it's an hour drive. Today it's an hour and a half because one of the main highways is closed. So
Perfect.
yeah, exactly. So I'll be on side street stuck in traffic at 1 o'clock this afternoon. It'll be fun.
Yeah, and then you unload all that stuff yourself.
Yes. Or if my wife's with me, she's not doing the show this afternoon with me. My wife takes over because she's got the muscles. Yeah. My other assistant actually has MS, so she's got her own difficulties and troubles. So a lot of times when it's time to pack up, she disappears and she's in the bathroom for 20 minutes. I'm like, the van is fully loaded. Where'd you go? I had to go to the bathroom. Oh, whatever.
I notice that whenever I load in for a show, typically no one helps load in, but as you're finished, everybody wants to help you load out. It's kind of like, it's like I think they're hoping they can figure out how something is done because
Yeah.
they're going to pick up something. It's like, oh, so this has got a trap door in it, huh? Or
It's
whatever.
a strong possibility. Hey, can I mention something real fast too?
Sure.
I got to mention something real fast.
Sure.
It has to do with people that use bunny rabbits. Okay.
Live rabbits.
Live rabbits in the show, right? If that bunny disappears at the end of the show, and they don't know where it is, you got a problem. So
Hadn't thought about that.
yeah, and these guys sneak their bunnies in, and then they sneak the bunnies back out again. You know, where's the rabbit? Did he go into one of those boxes? Did you shove him in one of those cases? You know, you have to see the bunny at the end of the show when you're out loading. You know, because people are very sensitive about animals, and they should be. I learned that a long time ago doing bunnies with birthday parties and stuff. You know. You can't sneak the bunny out by shoving him into a little box because you're cruel and unusual.
Now, you're not necessarily saying to reproduce the bunny
No.
at the very end, but you're saying to make sure that as you are loading out, yeah,
When the show is over, you can sneak them in a tiny box, but you better get them out of there in a nice, luxurious condominium. Okay?
right, that they can see
Yes,
how it's
that's what
being
I'm saying.
properly handled.
That's
That's a very good point. I once, so many years ago, I used to go by the name of Great Scott, and there was another Great Scott working cruise ships apparently, and he had mishandled some doves and was being sued by the SPCA. And so the Magic Castle came to me, Bill Larson, saying, "Was this you?" And I said, "No, I've never cruised the Azure Seas. That's a different guy." And so they pursued this other person, and that's what happened. Was apparently that one of the passengers had seen the conditions that he was keeping the doves like in a shoebox or something.
Oh, yeah?
It was just not a regular cage or something. And so he said this person said it was wrong, and they were going to pursue some lawsuit against this guy. But
Case in point, right there. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. Same thing.
so as I close, the name of my podcast, as you well know, because we've been friends for so long, is the magic word. And so, do you have a word that you use that I say not that you use in your show, but you use in life in order to live by? What type of a philosophy?
Oh, golly gee.
Golly gee, that's a good one.
No. Do I have a word? Oh, man. Oh, my
Or
favorite-
phrase.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I wish you knew. Wow. I wish you told me this before because we're
What
going
do
to
you
hang
live
up
by?
I'm going to, okay. Yes. Okay. Think you're the best and you will grow to be the best.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Like think and be rich. Yeah.
Same thing. If you think you are the best in that particular market, you will subconsciously hone in on those details and you will eventually become the best. I'm not the best school show performer in the world. There's other guys, on this planet who are better than me and more successful than me. But if I think that I am the best, I'm going to take care of those details and I'm going to present myself in the best possible way, particularly during those challenging situations. Instead of losing my cool, you know what I mean? I'm going to be the best I can be. So you got to think you're the best because then you'll be the best. You will become the best.
That sounds great. Doug, thanks very much. Again, I appreciate your time and your words and your friendship. It's been really great. And I know a lot of people will get a lot out of this and probably want to go back and listen again. And if they want to contact you, where can they write you or find you?
You can see I'm at assemblyshows@gmail.com. Assemblyshows@gmail.com. And I am assemblyshows.com on the web. So you can find me there too.
Sounds easy enough.
And Scott, send me your list of clothing for the rest of the week so we dress alike all the way through Saturday. All right?
Will do, my friend. So with the Magic Word Podcast, that was Doug Scheer. This is Scotty out.
Thank you.
Thank you very much again, Doug, for being my guest this week on the Magic Word Podcast. It was delightful to have you and to catch up a little bit. I certainly tried to step out of the way and let you, the expert, talk about this because I not only am not an expert, I really have never done school assembly shows, and so that is a completely different animal. And so thank you for sharing that with us. You did remind me of something that I had done some years ago, and that was when I was doing the Magic and Martini Thursdays during COVID with over 50, I think it was 57 episodes or something like that. that. And you and a couple of other school show entertainers had joined me, and we had a delightful conversation. And I would recommend people to go back and find that episode. It is out there on YouTube, certainly on my Magic Word Podcast channel on YouTube, and you can locate it there. And just do a search then for your name for Doug Scheer. But I also want to thank you for sharing your experiences with the rest of us, and also how to get involved, because this is something that is still a growing industry. And if there are some who might be interested in getting involved in this kind of an industry, well, you would be the right person for them to talk to. And as you had suggested, they can just give you a shout through an email, and you can get back with them and maybe give them some good advice and direction on how to go and where they can start. Well, until next week, stay well, get booked, and remember to think that you're best. Then you will grow to be the best. This is Scotty out.